Part 2. Okay, so I said that America was the country that started racism. I have no tangible proof of that, but I do say this that if you go back and research, America has had the most racist incidences in America. There aren't too many people of Chinese descent living in China that didn't fight other Chinese people. But as far as we know, the only black people living in China either live in Shanghai or Hong Kong, which were English speaking states. And most of them aren't really treated as citizens, but they aren't really treated as bad as we are treated here. It's the same thing. I've met a few Africans who have straight up told me that they hate black Americans. And I'm like, how is that possible? It's you guys' fault that we're this way. You guys got rid of us. You got rid of our ancestors, and this is what you get. You get the byproduct of 1,000 and some change years of slavery. We are the way we are because society made us this way, and we didn't really have an option, or you get your goddamn foot or your head cut the fuck off. Which goes back to America has had more racist things going on for people of color than anywhere else. Okay, now with Chinese having issues with China, all the way back to the Tiananmen Square thing and the Tank Man, you know, that was China. Even Japan had its warring states with Japan versus Japan. I don't know nothing about Russia, so we're not going to go there. But you know, every state has had a civil war or a civil war type-ish thing for their countries. So the state of our unions have always been some kind of flux. But racism is on a deeper level. Anytime that you are a slave and you have to go up to Canada to survive, and you have to take your family on the Underground Railroad, there are not too many white people who are leaving slavery in any other country that way. And if it is, then it hasn't been noted by American stuff that we can read about it. You know, because world history isn't always taught in American schools. Now, parts of world history is taught in American schools, but not everything. Because, you know, with the Jewish community and the Holocaust and shit like that, we were taught that. But things that led up to that, we weren't taught that. You know, and if you were, it's because you went to an property up school and I went to public school. So my knowledge of that isn't going to be as vast or as effective or as massive as yours. Do I see I threw that Mass Effect clue in there? If you're not gonna have the same criteria in one school as you have in other schools, then lessons will be lost and things will not be obtained. Now, when it comes down to racism, there is reverse racism to everyone. I know white people who couldn't stand white people because they like black people. I know white people who can't stand white people because they don't like black people. And then you have the in-between people who people are always calling rednecks or calling white trash or trailer trash. Hold on. A poor person is a poor person, whether they are white or black. And racism tends to ooze out of people's wounds and their mouths, and people don't really care about other people's feelings. Well, I know a lot of people who are multicultural. I know a lot of us don't really know where we fit in or how we evolve or what do we do, which is another reason why I wanted to make movies in the first place so that people can see that we do exist and that we can walk in both worlds. During the Vietnam era, there was a lot of people who had sex with American GIs and got pregnant, and those GIs left those Dutch children there. And that's the only thing I know about the Dutch child revolution, because a lot of the children who have American fathers have not been able to contact them, have not been able to leave Vietnam and come here and look for their parent or whatever. And there are a lot of soldiers who have no idea, or they know and just don't give a fuck because they were secretly married to someone else and didn't want to ruin their marriage because they got a little nasty over there in Vietnam, pillaged and raped and burnt and did things that they didn't want their wives to know about, and had children with Vietnamese indigenous women, and decided, you know, I'm not going to tell my wife this bitch get had pregnant by any other, and I'm sorry for the B word, could have been any one of my squad mates. And you know, if they've started a relationship with this girl and they know that that baby is theirs, but they just walk away, it happens. It has happened. It is a historical fact that many soldiers in American armies have fathered posthumous thousands of children and just have not claimed them, nor want to claim them, nor give a damn, and you know, you just don't know. And this has happened during World War One, World War Two, and probably Afghanistan and Desert Storm and all these other things. Because you know, um, we get a little lonely out there. I'm trying to be nice. And sometimes you meet people, and sometimes you can pay people. This is just like totally out of left field with that, because it's supposed to be about racism, and it went there because it does happen. There was a Dust Child thing about like 10 years ago that I watched on one of these social medias that didn't exist. Social media didn't really exist, but it was like posted on online because online did exist. And this lady, I think she was a singer. She has an American father. She doesn't know who he is, but she's in Vietnam, and she's an American daughter of a GI or whatever. But she never found him. She never stopped looking for him, but it was never acknowledged if she ever found him. She got a lot of backlash from her people because of the simple fact that her daddy was either a white man or a black man, and she's not pure Vietnamese. So these things do happen, and a lot of racism happens with people who are not pure blood. If you know what I'm saying, I've had racist incidences with some tribe that came to play wheelchair basketball with us, and I would say he's the chief. I don't remember his name, but and I'll tell you this story before too. He couldn't stand me, and he insulted me because I wasn't pure blood. He let me know he did not like people who were only half Native American, and I'm like, dude, I can't help that. I didn't ask to be born into my family. It's just one of the things that God decided. Hey, buddy, boom, you're gonna be that mutt that's coming into this family. Not everyone could be graced with being a pure-blooded Cherokee Indian. I'm not. I can accept that. But this guy didn't have the right to put me down because of my origin of birth, you know. And most of my racist events have come from, unfortunately, a lot of black people. And I have never figured out why, and I don't really care now because I'm grown, but I've never figured out why. It's like, I hate to tell half the black population in America, you are a descendant of mixed ethnicity because of all of the slave trades and things like that, and slaves that escaped and assimilated into Native American tribes and were kept from like being taken out of the tribes. Hey man, tribal wars protected a lot of slaves, and people don't know that, but yet people get mad at people like me for existing. And then when it comes down to it, some of our stuff doesn't count because we're not one of you, but we're all of you, and none of you at the same time. And I have gone through so much racial shit that, when Donald Trump started talking about race and immigrants and sending people back to the countries that they came from, and I'm sitting there, I was like, the only people who technically have a right to be here are people like me. Motherfuckers who were born of some tribal blood, where everybody who's not really of indigenous blood here should be gone as well. And, I'm not trying to be a dick about that. Honestly, if you're here, you're here. The country belongs to everyone now. It no longer belongs to the tribes. We have tribal lands and everything, and we try to protect them as much as can, but most of the time, some bureaucratic asshat in the government will find a loophole to dive through. When the Manhattan Indians lost Manhattan, it was probably like step one in the phase of let's start wiping out tribes. When they attacked Geronimo and Cochise and started making all these decisive spots where this is where you're going to live and this is where your clan is going to live and you're going to like this hunk of dirt whether you want to be here or not. If you step off this land, we will shoot you because we have guns and you have spears and bow and arrows, but we have musket balls and bullets, which were stolen by Chinese or from the Chinese by a white man named Marco Polo, along with noodles. So, you have to think about racism on a cellular level. And on a cellular level, most of the time, it has come an American thing more than any other country in the world. America is the one country where racism is not only acceptable, but it is well done, and people don't really address it, and they don't really fight it. They just sit there and they're like, well, okay, well, he said this and he said that. Yeah, he did. But he shouldn't be able to get away with it. If I was to walk up to a white person and call them a cracker or a honky, That shit is a fucking no-no. That is not right. That's putting something on someone because of the color of their skin and because I didn't like the color of their skin. But that person that I just called a cracker or a honky might be the nicest fucking person on the planet. It's the same thing when a white person walks up to a person and calls them a nigger or a spook. You know, that's not cool. You don't know that person, but because of the color of their skin, you're gonna automatically assume that that's what we are. I posted a video earlier today or yesterday with a white lady thanking the Native American tribes and feeling guilty for what they've done to them. So let me address that while we're on this racist thing. First and foremost, I don't give a damn what color a person is. We need to stop trying to hold ourselves responsible for the defects of ancestors. Black people, we can't keep being mad at white people for what their ancestors did. They are not their ancestors. Time to get past that shit. Yeah, we still want our 2 acres and a mule, but we don't have to be dicks about it to white people because of what their ancestors did. It's not their fault that they were born white. White people, especially the young white people that was in this video with the chief riding down the street on their horses and everything. Your ancestors are not you. You do not have to feel guilty for what your ancestors do. I do appreciate the fact that you do and that you are willing to admit that, because most people, it takes a lot to be willing to accept the burden of your ancestors and stuff. It takes a whole lot, and there's nothing that would make me more proud than hearing her, accept that and take that honor. But it is not her fault that her ancestors were asshats. It's her life to live and make amends by being opposite of your ancestors, and you're not really a racist unless, and I say this because this works for every nationality and every color of person, if you are not willing to let your daughter date out of her race with a man who really loves her versus a man of her color who will treat her like dog shit and whoop her ass, impregnate her, and leave her ass, but you would rather her be with that asshole than the black man or the white man or the Asian man who will love your daughter for everything he's worth, then your ass is a racist. If this man of a different color makes your child happy and treats her right, that's the man you want your daughter to be with. You don't want her to be with somebody who's bitch slapping her, calling out of her name, and cussing her out and treating her like dog shit because their ethnicities are the same and he can do whatever the hell he wants because he's a man. No. If you love your child and your child brings home a white man and you are a black man, but that white man treats your daughter like she's fucking gold, not like just she's my trophy and interracial dating's the thing, but he really loves her. And he sits there and he goes, look, man, I really do love your daughter. There's nothing I won't do for her. I've never cheated on her. I've never put my hands on her. I've never bitch smacked her. I've never talked to her like she was a dog. I've never called her the N-word. That man is the man for your child. Now, every relationship has its ups and downs. There will always be an argument in a relationship one day or another. It's the cycle. But, as long as he's treating her like she's supposed to be treated, that's the man you allow your daughter to marry. You don't want your daughter to marry a thug who's always getting shot at. Because if they're shooting at him, it won't be long before they're shooting at her. And any man who doesn't want their daughter to have a decent man, granted he might not be wealthy, he might not be well off, he might not be set yet, but he's getting there and she's inspiring him to do better, then they still have a fighting chance. But if you're like, no, you can't mess with that guy because, oh, he's black or he's white or he's Asian, he has nothing going for him, he doesn't know how to speak properly. But how does he treat your daughter? If he treats her like she's God's gift to him and you don't let him marry her, you're a douchebag full of dick tips and an asshat. And a lot of life relationships have been destroyed because daughter wants daddy's approval, and sometimes daddies ain't always right, and you can't pick who you fall in love with. The only thing you can do when your child falls in love with someone like me is to support them and pray like hell that they all get their shit together. And it's bound to happen sooner or later. They will get their shit together and things will either work out really well or work out really bad. Now the other thing, being the child of multiculturalness and being the product of it, I expect to teach my kid what I wasn't taught. You know, People aren't as understanding of us mixed children. People really want to come down on us because we're mixed. I don't know if it's like jealousy or if it's just fucking hatred, but I've had to face it all my life. I will probably have to face it until the day I die. I have been to places where I have filled out job applications and I have not gotten the job because I'm not black enough or I'm not white enough or they just think that I'm a Mexican and they start speaking to me in Spanish and I have to correct them real quick. And I'm like, look, I'm not Mexican. I don't speak Spanish. Well, you look as I'm also part Cherokee Indian, man. I'm black and I'm Cherokee Indian. I'm also white. I don't speak Spanish. In fact, when I went to college and I was taking Spanish, I only took Spanish because they didn't offer Japanese. I'd rather have learned Japanese because it's something that I'm into. Where I was forced to have Spanish shoved down my throat, and the only thing I learned was no habla no habla español, muy bien, and I used to be able to say, I'm looking for a job in Spanish, and now I can't remember what that is. Something about trabajar, but I don't speak Spanish. And in fact, I was feeling so bad that the teacher told me the answers were in the back and that I should use them if I want to pass her class. But before that, the first day she met me, she asked me why was I in this class because she, being from Spain, looked dead at me and thought that I was a Mexican. And she's like, "You're Mexican. Why don't you speak Spanish?" And I said, "Well, the joke's on you because I'm not Mexican." She said, "You're not Mexican?" And I was like, "No, I'm not Mexican." She's like, "You're kidding." I said, "Ma'am, my last name is not Lopez. My last name is not Ramirez. My last name is not Cordonon or Alejandro. My last name is Williams. Both of my grandmothers are Cherokee Indian. My great-grandmother on my father's side was full-blooded Cherokee Indian. I do not speak Cherokee because it was never taught to us because she didn't live on the reservation. She lived in Smithfield, Virginia, on Riverview. She died due to gangrene and diabetes. Her daughter would live to be 98 years old, and then she would die. You know, so yeah, I got longevity in the family, but I am not a Mexican. So you need to get some cultural shocks, you know. And she she would apologize, and she's like, because Mexican Spanish and Spain Spanish are two different Spanishes. And as I've said in other videos, the only reason why Mexicans speak Spanish in the first place was because Cortez fucked up the Incans, the Mayans, and the Aztec. So if you are of those descents and you are Mexican, guess what? Your ass is Asian too. Because I didn't know that Native Americans were Asian, or I had forgotten that Native Americans were Asian until my Asian friend from Korea, who is the son of a preacher, taught me better. Alright? Now, I will give you another racist example of things that have gone wrong racially with my life. I'm one of these people who do my damnedest to not offend people. And I have failed at it quite a few times, but I do my damnedest as a growing up multicultural person. You've learned that people are racially sensitive, so you have to approach them with sensitive stuff on their level. I was doing a report on Japan, and after this I'll go to the third video. And at this time I'm in college, so I'm doing this report on Japan, and there's like 3 Asian people in the class. So I cleared it up with the dude because he was Chinese. I cleared it up with the other dude because he was from Vietnam, and he also knew Kung Fu. We were about the same size. So, I was mostly expecting to worry about him because he knew Kung Fu, so we were like, if I step out of line, it's going to be a Kung Fu fight up in this motherfucker, so I need to be careful. And so then I went to this chick who looked straight up Asian. She was more Japanese than anything else. So, after class, because I knew my report was due the next day, and I already wrote it up and everything. I wrote that shit up like the day it was assigned. I don't play around with school. When you have work to do, you do it that day. You don't fucking wait till the end of the week, even if my last name starts with a W, which is what people did in high school. I volunteered to go first because I got tired of waiting until Friday to do my report when I wrote the shit up on Monday. And I've had like 7 days to practice the damn presentation. So anyway, moving back on. I went to her, after class and I say, look, I have to do a report that's not going to reflect very well on Japanese society, and I need to know if you're going to be okay with it. And it pissed her off because she was actually fucking Mexican. And she's like, you know what? You look more Chinese than I do. I said, I'm not Chinese. I'm Native American. She said, same concept. I said, well, you look Asian. She's like, I'm Mexican. I said, well, same concept. Because Native American tribes that are in Mexico are fucking Asian too. But I didn't know she was Mexican. Because she looked and walked and presented herself more like she would be more passing as Chinese or Japanese. And I didn't want to offend her because no one wants to be that guy in class that puts out that report without checking everybody in school before you do this report. Because no one wants to be the white guy in school that's going to do a report on 1945's black people in any black movement. Nowadays, it's probably more acceptable. But back when I was in college in like 99 and 97 and all that, that shit was just something that you kind of want to clarify. So you don't want to have people walk out of the classroom because you pissed them off. You know what I mean? You really don't. Okay, some of us might, but I didn't. Because I've grown up being a victim of racism all my fucking life. So the last thing I want to do is put people under that same scrutiny of me racially insulting their asses. So after she insulted me with that one, the next day I did my report without a problem. Got a B plus on it, which is pretty goddamn astounding being that in high school I got through school with like C's and D's. So that should tell you I'm not exactly 1,000% a genius. Now in certain classes like history, yeah, I could rock a B. But in like history and the fuck is the other class? Not math. Math I passed by the skin of my teeth with a low C, high D. Um, Social studies, history, and English class, I always rock B's and C's, never A's. So, and this was an English class in college, and I got a B plus, so like my first B plus ever in life. So I was like, wow, I got a B plus on being like culturally right, you know. And I was like, because I went in, and when I did this report, it was about Japanese weapons and the Shogun era and the ninja era and stuff like that. And I went down the line, and I just demonstrated, like I had my sabatu, I was doing all kinds of martial arts and stuff in the classroom and everything, and how it originated. And it's like, well, what style do you study? I said, my style is mostly Chinese now, but I started off in the Japanese karate, and I went through all the designs and all the things of how this became and why it was banded and all this other stuff. And I just went through everything, and the teacher was great, and he gave me a B plus. And then again, I apologized to all the Asian people in the room, and you know it was gracefully accepted and everything was fine. I got that report somewhere. I don't know what the hell I did with it, but I have it somewhere because it was my first B plus ever in life, and you know, it was the first B plus in life that I could actually remember. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, wow, you know, um, I've never ever purposely set out to wreck somebody's day with racial remarks since that Vietnam thing with the kid way back in grade school. And you know, as a person who has been called chief and nigger and half breed, you kind of gotta sit back and take that shit in, you know, because if you don't learn from this, you will burn from this. I'm James Williamson. You just come for number 2. Part 3 is coming to you really, really quickly.